Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 151 in the book of Genesis. Today's going to be about being surrounded by wolves, and you may find yourself today similarly surrounded by wolves, just like Jacob did and Joseph did. So I'm going to kind of try to change our expectation to almost expect it to be surrounded by wolves or in a pit or surrounded by failed humans. I'm going to get this from Genesis chapter 37, verse 32, a little bit of a review from yesterday, but I was struck about what happened with Jacob. So just listen in here to reorient us to the story. So this is Jacob's brother sending a robe that they put blood on. And they sent a robe of many colors and brought it to their father and said, "This we have found. Please identify whether it is your son's robes or not." And he identified and said, "Yes, it is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without a doubt torn to pieces." Then Jacob, who's the father, tore his garments and put on sackcloth on his loins and mourned for his sons many days, like all his days if he ever had lost a child. All his sons and daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted and said, "No, I shall go down to Sheol mourning." Thus his father wept for him. So here's the thing that struck me about this, is how many sons did Jacob think that he was mourning over and in a broken relationship, in this case broken by death? That's one. So one that he knew about. He thought that child was lost to death, and that turns out not to be true. So the other thing is how many Jacob was actually in a broken relationship with 11 other sons. So he should have been mourning over the 11th sons, not the one son. So he was in a broken relationship with all 11 other sons who were in this conspiracy against him. So Jacob was deceived by that, which was not true in this particular case. He was in the state of ongoing broken relationship with 11 fakers, and he was the only one that was like not in on the joke, on the conspiracy, the deception, the big lie. So ironically, he was not in a broken relationship with Joseph, and that relationship was going to be restored. But the 11 that were around him, he was in a broken relationship with. All right, so I'm thinking about broken relationships with people that are near us, and it turns out that the brothers he thought were in a state of fellowship with him, comforting him, turned out to be in broken relationship. So the relationship with Jacob and what son was broken? All 11 of them, but kind of in a way not Joseph. He was separated from him physically, obviously. So Jacob was grieving the wrong thing. That is the death of the son that didn't die. And he was grieving the wrong people, the 11 people who were deceiving him. So knowing what we know now, we would instruct him and say, "Hey, you're grieving the wrong situations. Your son's deception is what you should be grieving, not the death of this guy who didn't die." Now, obviously, there's a special grief with what he thought was death, because you can't go back and fix the relationship if there's any unfinished business. So Jacob in the story is actually grieving the wrong people. Joseph is going to actually live his best life. He's going to be one of the faithful heroes of the Bible through his suffering. He's going to save his people. He's going to save his family. All these knuckleheads we're talking about today, he's going to save them. And Jacob is surrounded by this pack of wolves. This is how I'm describing it. All right, so this is where I'm going with this. Is what kind of take home we're going to take from this. So what quality of humans do you surround yourself with? So is there anyone you should be moving towards in fellowship and commitment and encouragement? And my first thought was, well, maybe there's people you should be moving away from, people that aren't walking in the faith, or the wolves of our life. Well, then I was thinking about Jesus, which is always a dangerous thing to do, because he spent his whole life, most of his life, with knuckleheads and moving towards knuckleheads. So Jacob's problem in our story today is primarily with his family members. And they're probably not, erasable. Also, the Bible talks about weaker brothers in the church having special consideration. Also, the lost people in our world, they're called lost for a reason. So I think that we're kind of the Jacob in the story today, which is to put ourselves out there and put ourselves at risk. So God did not give Joseph a hall pass because he was abused. So we asked the question yesterday, does being in a pit of bad circumstances give you a spiritual hall pass to do the wrong thing? The answer is no. And we can't accuse God just because we're in a pit of God of being bad. So he, as a 17-year-old, was called to do the right thing, even though the circumstances were difficult. So my prayer is, may God call and save and sanctify all the knuckleheads in my world, in my family, in my friends, and in my church. And may you do your work there, Lord. So though I am disappointed in people sometimes, and they're probably disappointed with me, that doesn't mean that I'm not appointed by God. So even though I am surrounded by wolves, doesn't mean that God doesn't have me a job to do amidst that pack of wolves. So we kind of said yesterday, are you the God of the pit? Yes, you are. Are you the God of teenagers and innocence? Are you the God of people that disappoint people? Yes. So even though we're disappointed by people, we may be appointed for God for a good plan. So the charge today is, let's be a people who are found faithful and generous and kind and brave amidst a difficult and dangerous and deceitful world. In other words, this is the world that's in need of redemption. So this crazy world is full of the most valuable commodities in the universe. That is, the souls of mankind. So perhaps we're going to find ourselves in a pit or maybe surrounded by wolves like we are today. So let's be ready to act like Jesus did, or act at least like Jesus would have us act. So let's expect this. It's no surprise. That's the task we have in this world, even if we're surrounded by wolves. Thanks for listening.